All right. So as I said at the end of the last video, if you test this, the ball doesn't move much. If you let's go look at the screen real quick. If you look carefully, what you would see is the ball would just kind of vibrate a little bit. It would move just this a little teeny tiny bit, but barely noticeable at all. The more you tilted it, the bigger this acceleration value down here, it would vibrate just a little bit more and have a little bit, it was a little more easy to see. But it never really actually moved anywhere. It just kind of sat there. Okay. So let's talk about why that is. We have a small problem with our program, obviously, because the ball is moving, right? Here's what the problem is. When we got the value of the acceleration and when we got the value of the position, we use those to move the ball a little bit to a new spot. We also use those to change the text that shows up on the screen. But the problem is there's nothing that enables the computer to remember that we moved the ball. Here's what I mean by that. Let's just look at the acceleration block for a second. Remember, it's going to follow these steps literally in this order. So as soon as it senses an acceleration, it's going to change the text to what it sensed. It's going to change these numbers to match the value of this, which as of right now, the value is 100. Then it's going to move the ball based on these equations. So that's that little tiny, tiny motion that we saw of the ball. And then it stops. And then if it's still sensing acceleration, if we're still tipping the tablet, then it just starts this whole process over again. So when it gets to the bottom of the C, it's done, and then it starts over again. So now it checks to see, is the acceleration the same or did it change? And if it changed, it updates this. And then it updates these labels. That's what we get. But now here's the issue. The ball moved slightly, but this variable still equals 100. We changed the actual ball's location, but we never changed the variable that is keeping track of that piece of data. And so the computer doesn't know that the ball moves when it gets to this part of the procedure. Because remember, we're already at the end of this, and now we're in a second iteration of this event handler. When it gets to the end of this, it doesn't remember anything. Its memory gets wiped and it starts over. It looks up here and it says, oh, it's still at 100. Still at 100, and we're good. So here's what we need to do. And this is a key concept in the use of variables that you'll do throughout the whole entire class. We need to make sure that if we change the position, we update this variable so that the computer will remember that we changed the position. So to update the variable, we hover over this, and instead of getting the old value, we're going to set it to a new value. So I'm going to pull this down. And we're going to do the exact same thing with the y value. We're going to get this and set it to a new value. Now, what do we want to set it to? Well, we want to set it to where it just moved. And this formula tells us where it moved. So if I just copy that formula down here, now it's going to remember that we moved to this position. And so the next time it starts this loop over, it's going to say, oh yeah, we're not in 100 anymore. We're at 101.5 or whatever it is that we're at. And so now the ball should actually move. Okay. However, the ball's still not going to move exactly the way that we want. So here's what I want you to do right now. As soon as this video ends, I want you to test this out and notice the way that the ball moves. In one of the directions, it's going to move the way that we want. It's going to move the way that gravity says it should move. Okay, so remember on our tablet, if we tilt it this way, it should move that way. Okay, if we tilt it this way, it should move this way. That's what we want. But what you're going to find is that one of those isn't working quite right. So what I'd like you to do is spend a little bit of time trying to figure out, how do we fix that problem? How do we get it to move the right way? And when you think you've got an answer, test it, try it out, whatever. Call me over, and that's what I'm going to grade. I'm going to grade to make sure that your ball is actually moving the right way. And again, like everything we do, feel free to talk to somebody who's close to you, collaborate on this. Two minds are usually better than one. Let's see if we can get this problem solved.